Hello people, Linger here, and today two courageous people turned in their boxes for PvP review. They knew they won't get out of this alive. They knew they'll be flamed. But in turn, they get advanced PvP concepts, constructive criticism when we build their 3 optimal sets. Follow me on Twitch to get notified for these streams, and if you have the guts, get your own review as well. But otherwise, like, subscribe, lay back, and enjoy the show. Twitch has submitted their boxes, especially the courageous people among Twitch have submitted their boxes which is pretty nice. So we're going to review their boxes, and specifically, we're going to review their picks for Legends Championship Tournament. You need to set 3 teams for Legends Championship Tournament, so you better know what you're doing when you do that. Otherwise, you're going to get challenged a lot, you're going to move, you're going to get less challenger tokens. So it's optimal for resources, also optimal for gameplay. So today, we're going to review your boxes. First up, EuckFrick. Hello. In Inquisitors 3. Inquisitors 1 was founded by Grub, by the way. Wonderful friend of mine. Inquisitors 3 still going strong. Let's review EuckFrick's box. Box is pretty interesting. We're seeing a bench of to the tune of 27 Ascended Heroes, I think. And that's what we're going to review today. So, what are EuckFrick's 3 teams? First, we see Stall. This is traditional Stall team. So you see Arthos, Flora, Talene, the core that allows you to survive, alongside Screg, a slightly older team from the old days that used to help you sustain. Flora enjoys this bonus. Arthos ults and end up on the enemy side of the field. Screg Furniture, a star of this team. Second up, we have 5-pole. We do see Aaron on the front line of that 5-pole, which is interesting. We'll talk about it more in a second. And third team is going to be Ezizh. Ezizh bolstered by a bunch of very strong support heroes, which we will talk about. This is not going to be a box review though, so I won't make my comments about the signature item for Silas. We're just going to factually look at the current state of the boxes and say what do we expect to see in the PvP review. So, when you look at these boxes, the first thing I'd look for is I'd look for your 3 sets. You gotta have the idea of what the 3 sets are going to be before you even start this, before you even get into it. First thing, you gotta know what you're going for. You gotta have a brief idea. And when I look at this box, it's pretty interesting because you know for sure there's gonna be some sort of an Aaron set. Aaron, a very prominent character in Burst and in PvP. And then you're kind of left for a loop because Euck here has built various teams that are a little bit on the sideline. So the question is, can you possibly make a team out of what Euck has that is optimal to handle his arena threats? Now, around the level 330 range is where people get access to those stronger enemies. They're going to be running Burst, they're going to be running Ein's Godcomp, and you have to keep these teams in mind. You need to counter at least 2 of them. And when you look at Euck's teams, it makes sense on the surface. Like you say, alright, he has these heroes well invested, has these heroes well invested, and this makes kind of sense. But there's a couple mistakes. So first, this is the way that Euck currently has it set up. And when you have it set up like this, Scrath will group those enemies, but you will miss the top slot. The other issue is that you're leaving yourself very vulnerable to enemies running any kind of disturbance into Aaron. There's a couple characters that can be faster than Aaron. The known ones are going to be Nakaruru and Estrella that can just kind of engage on him, or enemy Aaron that's boosted by a Zorath, for example, but there's actually some fringe counters. For example, even Ezizh can run up to an Aaron frontline if he's not boosted up by a Zorath. So what I would advise you do is I would advise you change these 2. And then what you could do, and that's going to be a depending advice, it's not 100%, but one thing that you can do is you can remove Sophia in favor of some sort of disturbance. It depends on whether you're running into a lot of issues from characters like Aaron. So you can remove Sophia, Flora, and Nakaruru. You can do so for an Athalia if we have it. Another variant that you can consider, but is not 100% optimal, is you can keep the Aaron if you do use your Gwyneth, because you do have this very well invested Gwyneth. This is something you should do if you see a lot of Eins, people running Eins into your Aaron. So you could flex into a set that looks somewhat like this. Ooh, Dwichel says that frontline stars on the right. Looks good, looks good. Possible replacement that would make sense. You probably want Tidus to engage faster in these sets. You probably want Tidus on the front line. Having him behind Leica is decent, but you do lose the mirror matchups because the enemy Tidus howls faster than you do. You want Tidus on the front line, and you can do Scrath here or here. It depends on the exact variant that you face. So, Tidus frontline is going to be one of them. Second is going to be Estrella, and lastly, you're going to have Gwyneth. That's correct. Alright, second set that I want to talk to you about. The second set and the third set I would change meaningfully, but it depends on what exactly it is that you face. What I would imagine happening, and let me know if this is correct, is that most people would face your third team, they'd beat it, and then they'd choose whatever they know how to face, whether it's the first or the second. They're going to win either the first with Ezizh Godcomp, or the second with some sort of stall. Because the third team is relatively easier to beat if you know what you're doing. Is that the situation, Dwitchell? Like, if you look at your history of the challenges that you do get faced with, do you usually get people beating your third team in either your first or your second? Genuinely curious for that. Pretty much third team loses most. Alright, yeah. So I would change that third team because facing either one of these teams, you can do better than that at these level rankings. So you can use your Ezizh Godcomp. It's going to be less effective than other Ezizh Godcomps. I am aware that your Ezizh is lowly invested, but it's going to be significantly harder to counter. By the way, if you want to submit in your box, use add box below. I think I would do Arthur, and then you could do Rowan. Yeah, you should do Ezizh in that last slot. But this is specifically to counter specific enemies that you will face and slow down the pace of the fight to allow your Ezizh to pick off better kills. You do not have access to Ezio, which would be a strong asset here, but you do still not want to run Gwyneth because she's vulnerable to the same kind of things that Ezizh is, so you'll just be facing burst all the time. Your Ezizh is a tech pick to counter burst, which I'll explain more in just a second. And your second team is going to be characters that work with Screg a little bit better than even Ezizh. So yeah, so Arthur and Ezizh are going to be the front line, and then you're going to have Ezizh in the corner so that you're less vulnerable to Aaron than you would otherwise be. Now you're going to have Ezizh and Rowan so that Arthur remains immune through the fight. So this is going to be your front line and your back line in order. And your third team is going to be stalled with Tassie. So you want Flora in the middle to completely disable any kind of Aaron shenanigans against this team. You need Orthos behind the more bulky one in this team, which is going to be Screg. So you need Tassie, Flora, Orthos. These are going to be your three teams. I'll quickly show these teams on screen. If you do want the best PvP sets that you have currently, I would make these slight changes. Ezizh, Albedo, and Rowan. And your team 3 is going to be the Aaron teams. They're going to have probably this with the possible variations up to what you get challenged. I highly advise you research that, as you know, but all these variants are good. This is like common. So these would be your three teams. These would be your three teams. What you win is that Aaron has bad matchups all around the board. Even against the Iron set, you're running a utility set that's hard for Aaron to handle. So Aaron has like no good, like out of the bat good matches. You need either like to really customize it to win. Your third team that used to be your weakest team, we pretty much get rid of. You do run into the issue of your Irons being uninvested, but it's much more difficult to counter in something like an Isold on the front line, where people would usually just Aaron it from the back line without much issue to win the fight. So these three teams all together should give you good winning matches. The Ezizh frontline helps you both handle Aaron aggression and slow down the pace of the fight to allow the Irons to ult, which is very good because your Ezizh is in fact invested. Very well invested at that. At a box review, I might flame you a little bit more for the priorities because I'm not seeing the Crusher and Ollie yet, but for PvP review, decent, like good stuff. I did see the third set, which I would avoid in most of the situations to put as is. If you had stuff like All Night, be a different story, but as you know, this one does get hard countered by Aaron, so right now you fortify your sets, so the opponent has to be two sets that are hard instead of like one set that is hard. So I feel overall PvP team review, I'll give you a 7. I'll give you a 7 out of 10 for the current sets, and I think with the sets that we did put, I think you'll do fine. Dwitchell, I hope you're happy with the tips. I'm super happy I was first for the first box review, but I have started heading to work. Thanks for all the tips, Linker. Sure thing. Thank you for joining. Let's get to the next one. Flame me, please, says Jason. Alright. First of all, what is this format? This is my favorite content so far. Big PvP guy. Alright. Okay, so for the next box, we have Jason. Jason, pretty brave, pretty courageous after the big flaming on Dwitchell. And here, Jason is coming up strong. He's in the late to end game. We see level 345. He does have some key teams. So currently featured on his teams, we see the SARS Godcomp, traditional set Godcomp, by the way, benefiting from the Wilder bonus. We see team 2 being an Iron set with Talene, a little bit unconventional. I think we can optimize that. And team 3 is this kind of an Aaron set. That's interesting. I'm going to assume the left side is what's going to be on the front line, so we will talk about that in a second. But first, Let's look into what he has. So when we come up with these new boxes, the first thing we want to do is we want to figure out the 3 teams. What are the optimal 3 teams that this person can run currently? What are the optimal 3 teams that you do want to have? And you got to keep in mind, first of all, what they will be running against, which isn't trivial. And second, what kind of status can you make for them? Are you making 2 teams that will die and 1 that you think will hold? Are you making 1 team that will die? Can you make 3 teams that will hold or 2 teams that will hold and kind of carry on from there? Easy to identify. There's going to be something with Aaron. Aaron, that level of investment, definitely going to make it into the list. Second, there is going to be an Irons. The question is, can you afford an Irons Godcomp, which costs more? It takes higher placements for a 3rd set. And we're going to look into that in just a second. And third is either going to be the Godcomp Fragmentations or some sort of Celis Graveborn Disrupt. Now, is there any way for you to make a good Celis Graveborn Disrupt which will allow you to run 2 very strong comps? Let's craft the chat. Let's actually craft the Celis Graveborn team that Jason needs to run and then see what we think about it. So yeah, so the Celis Graveborn team is too weak. Let's open up the notepad. When you see the notepad come up, you know that we're gonna have the different teams come up. Let's see what we can make here. I'm going to explain why I think his Aaron team is currently too fragile. I don't think this is the optimal thing you should be doing. Allow me to explain why. So I'm going to assume the left side is going to be the front line because I see like Arthur and Albedo here. His team right now, Aaron team, is going to be Lorsan, Lauren Bestad, which is overall fine. It's going to be Laika and Gwyneth. So the idea is this. The idea is that you pull the 3 enemies here with Laika's boost, Gwyneth engages on them. This is fine. The issue is that you have no extender. This isn't fast enough. You don't have Athalia to assure this lands, and you don't have Zora to assure this lands. So your enemies can just simply counter you by putting an Estrilda. If you put an Estrilda over here, or a Naka over here, or an Athalia over here, Aaron is sad. You can even put a Thorin. And with this amount of counters, I know most players will not know how to do this, but I want to give you the optimal boxes, something that you can work up from. And being countered by Nakaruru, Estrilda, and Thorin, 3 characters that are pretty commonplace around your level. Remember, we're talking about a dimensional region likely at these levels. This is not optimal because the second that this bottom end is disabled by anything that knows how to engage, whether it's an Athalia on the Gwyneth, the Nakaruru, and the Aaron, that set is lost. And it's a strong set. So in your end, I would still resolve to either a traditional burst set, something that substitutes the Zorath in one way or another. For example, this is one set that does that. Or I would alternatively resort to 5 pull, which is what I would probably do in your end. 5 pull. Now, some people might be telling me, but Linker, he's missing something. How would you make 5 pull? He does not have Tidus. You people are something else. And you're something that's very precious to me. Allow me to tell you, very precious. The Lorsan, by the way, is fine. The Lorsan, by the way, is completely fine. The only thing he really needs to do is fit in and engage. This is very good into the mirror sets. He could use a Sophia, like he could do this set. But this I feel like is a little bit too weak. Because the Lorsan is weak, the Skriath is weak, so enemies can just like grab a couple of kills and re-engage on him. What I would do instead of this, what I would do in your place, is I would probably substitute out the Lorsan or the Sophia. I think substituting out the Lorsan will work better for you due to sheer power ratings and how meaningful they are. It's not because Lorsan is bad, it's just that low power ratings, like it's like basically a brute force kind of match. And then we'd put in your Nakaruru or Estrilda. You could do Joker too, by the way, instead of Naka. That's a hot take. But it works just fine. Alright, so second set is going to be Ainz. In your case, you're probably going to be doing a standard Ainz set. But before I dive into that, I want to recommend you on the Godcomp, I would use Talene. I think you can manage to use Talene. Let me make a set that does not use Talene on the Ainz set, so you can use Talene on the other comp, which I feel like is better for you. Source is good, but not into the enemies that you're running into. Source is good into tankier ones. If people are running the kind of comps that we saw a second ago, like Stall with Scrag and Mazoth, then Source is really good. But into most teams, it's not good enough. And I'll show you what you can run instead. So you do have this invested Arthur, you see in this slot. And it's something you want to watch out for, chat, by the way. This is going to be an interesting one. Some people would say Feral or Gwyneth. None of that. You want to do your Rain. You want to do Rain in that last slot. It's incredible in the mirror matchup. It's incredible. It gives Ainz a lot of energy. It makes up for no Rowan. It gives Ainz a lot of energy. This guy has the furniture on it. It's just good. It instantly procs and allows Ainz to pick up fast kills for Rain to generate energy, and by keeping it this way, you're really setting up yourself for success. The only last change I would make here is I would move Einz there. This makes you less vulnerable to Aaron comps when Aaron is placed in a frontline position, because that way they can pull Rain alone or pull that lower end, and this way you're setting up yourself for success. Gwyn would work too, depends on against which set you're talking about again. Like into Einz, Gwyn is less consistent if they know to place the Einz away from Gwyneth. And I think that this set is gonna run into a lot of Einz in his level. Into Aaron, Gwyn is also a little bit more tricky because there's not many Aaron targets here, they'll probably just pull Gwyneth. Into stall sets, I think that Gwyneth is better in some situations, but if you take into consideration what Jason is facing, this is likely going to be the strongest set. And then you're left with traditional Godcomp. So here you should just do your Lean, your Rowan, your Twins. You have an Ezizh, right? Oh, it's not as invested as I like. Maybe you can use your Feral, honestly. Maybe you can, like the Feral is so well invested, I would do a Feral here. I think his Ezizh would die too fast. Like if you put an Ezizh here, he would use Aaron or Athalia or anything. I think Feral is actually a decent choice. How would I place this? Because his Feral is so strong, it can provide the same functionality as Ezizh, stacking up the Spirit so fast. You have two carries here. You have the Feral and the Talene. These are your two carries. And Aaron here is a little bit hard to face, but Aaron matchups are hard for all God comps, pretty much the same. However, if they place the Aaron to attack your Feral, first of all, the Feral can dodge, which means you win because you instantly re-engage in the Spirit. And if you do get placed against the Aaron, which is your weakest set, and an enemy Aaron appears on the front line and does attack you, at least you verify that they killed the Talene very fast, getting your signature item to proc, so you can potentially retaliate. So this is good concepts for PvP. You should know this, chat. You should know this. This is important. If you want to win PvP matches, you should know what are going to be your issues. And I'm saying, alright, Godcomp, you need to run Godcomp, but Aaron will be an issue. The way that you address it is you make it so that you have the maximum chance to win against slower matches. Because if I put in a Ezizh here, any Aaron set would just burst anything down. Against the Feral, his high investment Feral is an asset. He can potentially stun lock for all traditional Godcomp matches, including Eyes, including even Gwyneth, a lot of stuff that Feral can handle. And into the Aaron matches, he has the chance to dodge. So at least it's not a completely lost matchup. Alright, Jason, let's look at your teams. Alright, so Godcomp, you did use Ezizh and Source. Not big mistakes, but I would consider these mistakes because this is super susceptible to any kind of burst. Especially, I like that you spaced Ezizh and Twins, which means they won't be burst at the same time, but people at your ranking usually will have 5-pull, and 5-pull gives the first team a lot of trouble. Here it gives it less trouble, still problematic, but at least we adjusted it so you have the best chance to face it. Overall good train of thought though. As for team 2, looks good overall. I think that the team that we recommended is a little bit more optimized in terms of positioning, and the Rain hot pick is going to be very useful. And your Aaron set is significantly more optimized to win mirror matches as well as other matches that you will face. So Jason, I'd rank your sets overall. I think this is another one, 7 out of 10. Good sets, good train of thought, minor improvements. Really changed the way that this box has went. We are back. Thank you to the people who submitted their boxes. Isn't it funny when YouTubers tell you to subscribe? It feels kind of artificial, but I have to do it. Otherwise the algorithm will hate me, will not let me reach a wider audience. So like, subscribe, hit the bell, join for early access, follow me, Twitch, MySpace, everything. Be the first to take part in these. Yo, it's actually awesome. And I've been Linker. Peace.